Well, good afternoon, everyone. What a turnout. This is absolutely fabulous here. And this is so exciting to see us all gathered here and to start what really is the beginning of several events that we're hosting here for our community and values piece to it. So thank you for being here for the inaugural 2020 C&V event here and exploring ideas about belonging. You're going to soon hear several answers to this very interesting question. Faced with reestablishing a civilization for humankind on another planet, how would you build and foster community? I am so pleased that Ann Ayers, who is the brainchild of our Community and Values Initiative, chose a space theme for the first inaugural C&V event. And it's in honor of the new Star Trek series that features the return of Jean-Luc Picard, I want everyone to know, premiering Wednesday on January 23rd at your local CBS station, okay? But very seriously, the question, although is hypothetical, it does really have meaning for us here today. Because after all, the spirit behind it is really applicable to the fact that there's so much happening in our world that is pulling us apart from coming together as a community and feeling a sense of belonging. Not just here at the University of Denver, of course, but nationally and globally as well. In many ways, we really are starting afresh, and just like today's question is about, because there's so many changes of technology, globalization versus nationalization, increasing political divisions, and of course, the cultural and demographic shifts that are happening on a regular basis for us. So at DU, and just about anywhere in the United States right now, people are wondering what community means, what does it look like, and how do we benefit from it and foster its success. Now, for me, the notion of the benefit of building a community and really establishing a sense of belonging is so apparent in the research that shows people of an organization or a community are just plain happier and more satisfied, more willing to work together across various different silos. And as a result, are more productive or more fulfilled in their lives. And I think that in and of itself is important. But there was an article in Inside Higher Education just recently. They published a story about the importance of belonging from a student success point of view. Those of you who know me, at the end of the day, I'm all about our students, so this really rings true to me. And the research shows that there is much more room for improvement for minority and first-generation students to feel a powerful sense of belonging and community at four-year colleges and campuses. And I think in my conversations with our students, there's no doubt in my mind that that is true at this institution as well. So we have some work to do, but that's why we're here, to explore what it means, a sense of belonging. I believe this capacity is really enhanced. Hang on, I'm a little out of order here, maybe. Yeah, I forgot to turn the page. So this notion of building a community and sense of belonging really is at the heart of our Community and Values Initiative here, and it's why it is so essential that we really put energy and effort into it. And in the next 20 weeks, the winter quarter, the spring quarter, you are going to see a tremendous amount of programming come forward. Not just in events like this one, but experiences and real work that's going to help us rethink our values or refresh our values, and then go through a process of recommitting to these values. Here on campus, we talk about One DU and its central role in our DU Impact 2025, but without community and without a clear sense of our shared values, we're never going to achieve the highest and greatest, boldest expectations for our 1DU potential. So it is really, really important. And we are asking really significant, courageous, bold questions along the way. Complicated questions, like what better place than a university to do this work? How are we and how should we interact with one another? What changes do we want to see in our communities and our bigger community as well? What do we need to do now? And what do we need to do 10 years from now? And what do we value? And how does our community, our work, and our studies reflect those very values? So these are the questions, these are the ideas that over the last 18 months, right? We started in 2018 in the fall, really starting to begin to discuss this idea. And we spent last year talking about the process for us to do this intellectual inquiry, and now we're in the midst of it. But these are the ideas that have shaped where we are today, and they'll continue to evolve as we learn more from you in these events. For me, however, all of this is about the objective of strengthening our collective and individual sense of belonging. I do think we do a terrific job at creating a welcoming environment, a welcoming institution. And I see many of our good friends from admissions here, and that's a great example of when we have our orientation for first-year students, how they feel welcomed here and their parents feel welcome, right? We do a really good job, and not just at that event, but welcoming new staff and new faculty. Where I think we have this room for improvement, of course, though, is in the sense of belonging. So once we enjoy their company, how do we make them feel like they're part of the community? How do they make we feel a sense of belonging? You know, that sense of identity, the sense of tribe, I think is really kind of gets at this notion of belonging. And it's likely to happen locally in departments or in units, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't aspire to have it happen globally here at the entire university, this sense of belonging. It's not easy. I'm convinced that it's really, really hard work. It's going to take a lot of energy and effort and resources. But it's also why I'm so excited about the work we're doing around the four-dimensional student experience, because it really is about thinking on how we create this sense of belonging for our students, for our faculty, and our staff. I think a key to this, in my humble opinion, is really developing some muscle around having difficult conversations. Difficult conversations are really hard to have. I know that even I struggle, and I need constant kind of coaching sometimes on how to go about certain really hard conversations. It's normal that we struggle in those. But I think this university really needs and can stand out if it developed an expertise in having these difficult conversations. We can't go wrong if we develop that muscle. And I think one of the ways that we could really explore this is seeking out divergent opinions, encouraging us to stretch ourselves, encouraging us to exercise our empathy and listening, putting ourselves in the shoes of others. This is hard, to listen to those that we might not agree with, but I think it is absolutely important, especially in an institution of higher learning. And so I'm interested in exploring how we can have those divergent conversations and learn how to have those hard discussions at the same time. So before I introduce the first speaker, I think I should close with this. Belonging, the final frontier. These are the events of the community and values. Its continuing mission to explore empathy and master difficult conversations, to seek out divergent thought and new perspectives, to boldly go where no university has gone before. Okay. So it's my delightful honor to have kind of an MC role here, and I get to introduce the speakers. There are 4 speakers today, and they're all going to come at this question that you've seen now, and to explore how do you build community on starting afresh. Our first speaker is someone we should all be proud of, a very successful DU alum. His name is Julio Alas. He's a bachelor and master's graduated from Mortgage College of Education. He's 10 years of experience in education and currently works as a community support partner in the early education department in the Denver public school system, supporting over 31 child care agencies across Denver. He's previously taught preschool and 1st and 2nd grade. He has experience and passion teaching dual languages and those who are learning English. He's born and raised in Denver and attended Denver public schools. In his free time, Julio enjoys going out to eat with friends, running outdoors, and spending time with friends and family. Let's give a very warm welcome to our very first speaker, Julio Alas.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to start out today by sharing an African proverb with you that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. I was fortunate enough to work on a kindergarten team in my first few years of being a teacher that truly embodied this idea that when we care for one another and we support each other in this grueling work, magical things will start to happen. But unfortunately, I think that many of us start losing sight of the power of togetherness, the power of connection, and the power of collaborating and striving to do better, not just for ourselves, but for the greater good. You throw in social media and you throw in technology, and that connection that typically builds through face-to-face interactions and that in turn builds a relationship is slowly starting to change, if not going away altogether. Yet we still continue to have this facade of connection when in reality we're so far from it that we don't even realize it. But here we are on this new planet, ready to venture off with our new civilization and think about how we can possibly foster community. So how do we do that? Well, I think we can gain some insight from my decade of working in education and considering some experiences that I want to share with you today about how we could possibly foster community on this new planet. You see, I've had the pleasure of being an educator for the past 10 years, and currently I'm a community support partner in the early education department at Denver Public Schools. But before this work, I had the honor and the pleasure of being a teacher in the classroom. I got to work with children from preschool age all the way up through 2nd grade in English and Spanish-speaking environments, as well as in traditional and Montessori settings. And every single year, I was tasked with this very question. How am I possibly going to foster and build community with the new set of children in my class, along with their families? Well, after trying some things and crashing and burning on some days, I can share some ideas with you that I think would be helpful in this hypothetical dilemma that we have in front of us today. But first, I think it's important for us to note that in human nature and human development, an essential factor for us is this idea of connection. Ultimately, all of us want to be connected to other people, we want to be seen, and we want to be heard. Now, the degrees of variation on how much of that we need depends on you, but ultimately, that's what we all want. That's what we all feel. And so, as I was thinking about my practice, in the later years of me being in the classroom, I started shifting my thinking of how I would approach learning. So, although academics are extremely important, and that's the job of a teacher, prior to that, we have to build connection, and we have to build relationship with the children that we're working with each and every day. So, the first day of school, you can imagine, included the typical activities of teaching rituals and routines, finding name tags, finding your book bag, and the hook that you're gonna put it on, getting your breakfast ready. But we took it a step further. So, day one, we would have a bubble blowing party with our preschoolers and show them at the end of the day how awesome it is to play with such a simple thing by blowing bubbles. And then each preschooler would get the opportunity to take their own little bubbles home with them and talk to their parents about what they learned with this fun activity. Then the next day, we'd take it a step further, And we try to talk a little bit more about this idea of teamwork and community building. And with 4-year-olds, that looks like parachute play. So I don't know about you, but I know when we would go to PE class, how many of us jumped for joy when we saw that big, colorful circle in gym class, right? So that's another important factor of this idea of connectedness, right? Where we also have to have joy. So that's why in our early education department, we have adopted the tagline, joyful learning from the start. But beyond these fun experiences that allowed children to start seeing me as a safe individual and as somebody that they could connect with, we also had to take the opportunity to talk to their parents and to truly find out, who is this child? Who are you as a family member and as a parent? And what are your hopes and dreams for your children in the future? So my assistant teacher and I began participating in what's called the DPS Home Visitor Program, where teachers take the opportunity after school to arrange an appointment to meet with the family at their home or some other place that's not on school grounds. Now, the beauty of this is that children begin seeing their teachers in their neighborhood, in their home, their grandmother pouring their teacher a cup of coffee at their dinner table, discussing and sharing family stories over pan dulce. And the beauty of that is that the child would then come to class the next day and say, do you remember you came to my house? And yes, I do. It happened yesterday, and it was lovely. But these children experiencing this yielded very important outcomes in my practice. The first of which being that parents started feeling like they knew me and wanted to be involved in school with us and participate in the classroom a little bit more. But I think the most important thing that I noticed is that we had happy children who genuinely wanted to come to school. But I still think that this issue of fostering community is a complex one. But I think that the answer lies in the way that we interact with, the way that we raise, and the way that we educate our children. So think about that for a minute. And think about the young children in your lives and how you interact with them, or the youth that's in your lives. I'd like to echo the words of an innovative educational pioneer of our time from the 19th century, Dr. Maria Montessori. You see, she believed that peace and community can happen worldwide through the child. She argues that if we provide children with an environment where they can genuinely see and feel how good it is to take pride in zipping up your own jacket after learning how hard it was, and then you take the time to teach your little friend how to do that as well, that smile that child has because of you feels really good. And then she takes it a step further and says, well, children also need to take care of their environment. And when we work together to maintain our classroom for everybody's benefit, it feels good. So then in turn, this child will grow up and start spreading that inner satisfaction, that intrinsic motivation to genuinely want to help other people just because it feels good. You see, Dr. Montessori lived through 2 world wars. And during this time, she saw the hate, the fear, and the anger that exudes from people during war. And surely you can picture real-life examples right now of people in power and leadership who continue to spew this bigotry, right, and hate. So nonetheless, I think that Dr. Montessori's idea is really more a planting of seeds of kindness that one day will bear fruit and flowers that will be coming about in the way that we interact with one another and that desire to connect with each other. You see, I think that kindness is contagious. There's something that happens when we shine our light and help other people shine theirs. There's just something that happens when that positivity is amongst a group of people. And then imagine that group of people taking their light and spreading it with other groups of people. Eventually, we're shining light everywhere. My family's from El Salvador, and one of my favorite things is walking around my mom's hometown where complete strangers will walk up and pass you and say, buenos dias, buenas tardes. And from an early age, we as children are taught when you walk into a home or you walk into a store, buenas, ¿cómo están? Right? You greet each other and you say hello. And those tiny little seeds of kindness, I think, have so much impact and power that genuinely snowball and start building up to even greater things that we can do with our communities. Yet, we still are thinking about how we could help these adults in this new civilization see the value of planting these seeds of kindness. Well, I want to give you another example. In Denver Public Schools, It's a path that we've been embarking on for a few years now, known as educating the whole child. We now understand that children are more than their academic output and performance. Children have to have their whole needs met, all of their social, physical, and mental needs. So throughout our district, you'll begin seeing more mental health supports, teams that teach our teachers how to use trauma-informed practices to work with children who have trauma and are coming to school, as well as simple things like providing food. My classroom was able to have breakfast in our class so that we could all start the day with our tummies full and our minds ready to learn. And so I think when we're thinking about this new society, we can translate this idea of the whole child to the whole person, where this notion of ensuring that all of our needs are being met permeate through all facets of our lives, from the way that we educate children, from the way that we treat our employees, to the way that we treat our elderly, and everything in between. Now, imagine, just yourselves, think about how many times you're walking down the street and you see a piece of trash. And you might say, I'm not picking that up. I didn't leave that there. That's not mine. Well, social psychologists call this diffusion of responsibility. This idea that when we're around other humans, we likely won't act or we won't want to get involved because someone else will do it. So what do we do to facilitate this need and this desire to want to get involved? Well, I think that our society is going to have to implement systems to help families and people enjoy life and enjoy being together. So for example, imagine a society where a terminal illness doesn't mean that your family will be ruined because you either couldn't afford the costs of medical expenses or even access them. Or imagine a community that values education so much that pursuing a higher education won't leave graduates drowning in debt. Or the workplace, a place where people can take time off to be sick, to go on vacation, and dare I say, take more than 6 weeks to be with a newborn baby. Well, if you think that this is, a little fluffy and you're like, so just be nice to one another, is that what you're saying? Well, yeah, it is. But let me give you one more example. You see, during my time here at the University of Denver, I had the privilege and the honor and the blessing to meet a Latina professor named Dr. Lisa Martinez. And in her very first day of class, she presented data about Latinos in the US, but one piece struck me so much that I attribute learning about that piece of data, and the data was that at that time, Latinos had the highest dropout rate from high school. That sparked this fire in me that started this trajectory for me to become an educator because I wanted to change that statistic. And so Dr. Martinez noticed my interest and my husband's interest in wanting to learn more about why and what is making the Latinos who go to school and graduate successful. Well, as we went through the transcripts of all the Latinx youth that we interviewed, we began to notice trends, but one of them really stood out to me. One that said that many of these youth reported having at least one person who cared about their well-being and supported them and gave them those nudges to keep going forward, whether it be a parent, a counselor, or a coach, what have you. And if you don't believe that, surely you've heard the quote, "It only takes one," right? But here's what I'd like to pose for you. What if it wasn't just one? And what if it was everyone taking the time to encourage one another, to push each other, to truly show that compassion and care for each other that will then plant seeds of kindness in the hearts and in the minds of everybody that we interact with? Imagine that these seeds of kindness one day bloom into fruit, into flowers that start to show us when we do come together, our communities will go far. Not only that, though, we'll all have a sense of security that will truly show us why it's so important for us to care for one another. Now, I'd like to take a moment and just say thank you to the familiar faces in this crowd today who planted a seed of kindness in me. Because if it wasn't for you, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And here's the cool thing about this idea, is that we don't have to wait to go to this new planet to try it out. You don't. I'm going to challenge all of you as you walk out of this room to consider, Could you greet the people walking past you as you walk by? How many times have you ran across this campus with your blinders on, with you're trying to get to your destination and don't even recognize or look at people as you do so? Imagine what our society would harvest with the seeds of kindness that you all plant today. Thank you.
Am I on? Buenos dias, Julio.
Buenos dias.
Okay, I love the challenge that he put out for us at the end of it. So that's our assignment. When we leave the room, we're going to say buenos dias to a stranger and make that eye contact and make them feel like they're part of the community here. Wonderful, thank you. Our next speaker is someone, if you've watched the student athletes perform, you probably have seen or heard his name in one form or another. Jamie Franks. He is the head coach of our men's soccer team. Let me tell you a little bit about Jamie. He received his master's in organizational leadership with a focus on human capital here at the University of Denver. As coach, he is 4 times a conference coach of the year for the University of Denver. And this is something I didn't know about Jamie. Where is Jamie? Where are you? Right there. In 2016, he was the National Coach of the Year. That's an incredible achievement, Jamie, so you've got to feel really incredibly proud about it. He's got an outstanding record in coaching the men's soccer team. 67 wins, 24 losses, 13 ties. The men's soccer program, this is near and dear to my heart. The men's soccer program has produced top GPAs, grade point averages in the country for 3 straight seasons at a 3.7 cumulative GPA. That's an amazing achievement here. Something that all of us, I think, we can feel incredibly proud about because these are, at the end of the day, student athletes. And I will just add a little personal note. I got to spend several days with Jamie in Germany because we went and visited our partner, Bern Football Club there last spring. And be careful if you ask him a question on leadership because you can expect to have a very long dialogue with a very intense young man here talking about his philosophy on coaching. And I just have a inkling that he's going to share a little bit of that philosophy today with us. Please welcome Jamie Franks.
Hello, and thanks for having me. The more that I dove into this question and the more that I really thought about it, I got a little nervous because I'm thinking, man, if this actually happens, I hope they have more than a soccer coach trying to figure out this problem. I found security, though, understanding that it wouldn't just be my problem to tackle, that I found trust in each other and that I found trust in humankind. And so my talk is called The Efforts to Build Trust. Building trust is something that is mindful. It takes a daily approach. It's a lot harder to create. It's very easy to destroy. And so it's the efforts to do it. Building trust and purpose through our mission. I think anytime you have a group of people, you want to make sure that they understand what our purpose is. Why are we here? And for us, it would be to grow a community that is safe and prosperous through our intelligence, our skill sets, and our unity. If we had a daily emphasis on interpersonal connection, mindfulness to others, and a positive attitude, the community would be welcoming to all. When you're establishing community, it's important to understand that they need goals. What are the goals of the community? For us, the first one and the most important thing would be to create trust among the community members that we're all in this together, that we're all in the same place, okay, and we're all in this together, that the community will always strive to be safe. everyone will play a role within the community and that we will build a better future together. When we talk about goals, it's great to talk about lofty goals, far away goals, but we'd have to look at ourselves and evaluate them every single day. And so what process goals could we really put in? And as a group, it would be just to set up the community and find it better than it was the day before. As an individual, you have a choice. You have an opportunity every day to live by our community values and consciously work on our character traits. As a group, understanding that the greatest challenge is building and sustaining the community itself. That if each community member's focus is on the interpersonal relationships with each other, then we'll accomplish our goals and live by our values. One of the most important things right away would be to establish what our values actually are. Excellence, and that word's been thrown around a lot, but for us in our community, it would just be to bring your best every day. It sounds a lot easier. It's not something that you can always accomplish, but if you strive to do it, you can always look back and think about a little bit where you came short or what you did that day to make you successful. Integrity, be honest, be fair, and have a strong moral compass. Grit is just keep fighting in the face of adversity and failure. Now that's a buzzword, and the difference in grit and resiliency is grit has purpose. You have a more understanding of what you're doing, so you have more perseverance to go after it. Passion is to make sure that you approach every day with optimism, purpose, and a positive energy. All of that stuff is contagious, right? Every leader must lead by example. And if you approach every day with an optimism, with a purpose, and a positive energy, it's contagious to those around you. A mindfulness and effort to live by these every day, okay, will shape the community's mindsets, it will shape our interactions, and it will shape our behaviors. Every day, as individuals, you get to wake up and you get to make a choice. And if we said that these are the character traits that we need to live by to make sure that our core values come alive, that will help us achieve our mission, it starts with self-awareness. It starts with understanding what your strengths, what your weaknesses are, what your values are, and most importantly, how you impact others. And understanding that every interaction that you have, every day that you interact with people, okay, you impact them, good or bad. You're either building them up or breaking them down. Leadership, be authentic. There's no leader that's similar. They're all authentic. Use your strengths, your skill sets to make people around you better. One thing that we always challenge our student athletes all the time about leadership is do what you say you're going to do. Walk the walk. Growth mindset is just to keep learning through a process-oriented approach. There would be so many new challenges and everything else facing us that for us is as long as we just kept learning every day, we would eventually find the problems and find the solutions to the problems. Resiliency, keep fighting. All right, there's 21 different definitions of resiliency, but for us, resiliency is just when you find failure, get back up. When you get knocked down, get back up. Just keep fighting. For us, communication skills, okay? Speak with honesty and openness. Accountability, do your job. Hold yourself and hold others in the community accountable to the highest standards every day. And then the last one, teamwork. Just understanding that everyone plays an important role within the community's overall success. You have to build trust through connections and interactions. A sense of belonging is very, very hard to create, and it's very easy to destroy. The goal is to create safety within each community member. People want to be a part of a community. They want to belong. Belonging cues really possess three basic qualities. One, that we're present, that we're connected, we're mindful of the current interaction that's happening, that it's authentic, that the person feels valued, they feel unique. And then the last one, and the most important one, is that there's a future together, that this relationship will continue on. Our brains, they're constantly tracking situations and environments. So to make sure, okay, that they understand that we need each other, that we cannot do it by ourselves. That vulnerability from the leadership That vulnerability every day is contagious. And if we lead by example with vulnerability, then the rest of the group, it will permeate throughout. Building trust through positive leadership and culture. Positive leadership. Create a leadership team and governing body who live by the core values and character traits every day. Their job is to continually push towards our purpose, towards our mission. These leaders will be voted on by the community members. What matters is what you're doing today to create the culture. Not what you did yesterday, what you're doing today. There is a mindfulness to that approach that either bring people closer with every interaction or isolate them and break them down. The community must understand that the mission, it's a never-ending process of trying, failing, reflecting, and learning. All of these problems we must navigate together as we evolve, because there's always going to be new challenges, new obstacles as they present themselves. Positive leadership. The sole purpose of the leadership team, the main objective of the leadership team would make sure that the community approaches every day with these beliefs and mindsets that, 1, we will keep moving forward. 2, we choose how we feel today. 3, we are capable, that we focus on improvements and small wins, and that we'll get it right the next day. If those beliefs and those mindsets are set forth by the leaders, and if we hear that it goes off track and we put people back on track, we will make sure that we're all moving forward together. How do you gain each community member's trust? It's something that starts with a commitment. It's a commitment to each other. It's a commitment that you're going to belong, that you're going to be part of something. But understanding that it starts with commitment. It moves to shared vision to make sure that both community members have their best vision together. Then you have clear individual goals for that individual. You define their roles, their expectations for their part in the community, and then you have evaluations of that role and community. If they own it, then they expand. If they don't, then they have to exit and you have to start again with commitment and then go back to shared vision. Obviously, as a soccer coach, I like action plans. I like next things. So there was no way that I could do this talk without an action plan. But how do you create a trusting together culture? List all of the objectives for the first 30 days of the community. What are the main priorities of the group? Rank the objectives. Identify the top 5 and let those top 5 objectives guide us every single day. Role defining, whether it's proficiency, industrious, production, we need all those things, no doubt, but you still need time to have creativity and innovation too. So making sure that we're identifying the roles within the group, making sure that we're identifying the process goals for each working group. Embrace a common language. Use artifacts and symbols, something that unites us. It could be pictures, but we need to tell our story in our community. So if somebody from the outside came in, they understood who we were and what we stood for. Define important actions and behaviors. That was how do we approach every day? And then generating short-term wins. It's important to recognize the people who made the wins possible and celebrate them within the community. The efforts to build and maintain trust start with having a mission, values, and goals that provide us all purpose together. The main goals is to create trust among the community that everybody's together, that we're going to strive to be safe, that everyone will play a role, and that we all have a future together. Interpersonal relationships is a conscious effort that each community member makes every day. What matters is what we did today with the community. There is a mindfulness to this approach that either bring us all together or will break us apart. This mission is a process. It's a never-ending cycle of trying together, failing together, reflecting together, and learning together. These problems must all be navigated together because there's going to be new problems and new challenges and new obstacles. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. You can see why our men's soccer team has done so extraordinarily well over the last few years. And just kind of inspiring to listening to him and his approaches and thinking, and he executes on this on a daily basis. Thank you. Yesterday, we celebrated the great achievements of many of our faculty and our staff. Our next speaker is another one of those superstar faculty members that we have here at the university. And I'm pleased to introduce April Alexander. She is, let me pull up the details here, currently a clinical assistant professor in the forensic psychology program in the Graduate School of Professional Psychology. She serves as the director of the University of Denver's Forensic Institute of Research, Service, and Training's Outpatient Competency Restoration Program. Her research focuses on violence and victimization, human sexuality, and culturally informed practice. She has been recognized through several awards. Most recently, in 2019, she was awarded by the American Psychological Association Early Career Award for outstanding contributions to benefit children, youth, and families. And another award in 2019, again, the Society of Psychological Study of Social Issues, Michelle Alexander Early Career Award for Scholarship and Service. She's also one of our Public Impact Fellows, and just over this last break, she was in the media presenting some of her research ideas. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Alexander.
I want to start off with a process comment. If we're looking at my title, I'm pretty screwed, right? Jeremy started off this whole talk, and Julio's mentioned empathy twice, so they set me up for failure. So just hear me out when I'm talking about leaving compassion and empathy behind. Just work with me a little bit. So I teach a course in social justice, public policy, and advocacy for our master's and doctoral students in psychology here on campus. During our first week of class, I challenge our students to identify their top 5 core values, the values that navigate the way they think, believe, behave in their world. So why I do this exercise is I want us to think about the things that we have in common, the things that we have that are different. What are those values that center our worldviews? I do this exercise in this course because we cover a lot of current events, a lot of heated discussions on current topics, and so we need to think about our current values and how they, again, navigate how we see the world. So they're gonna select these values, and I'll display them for you to review in just a second. And instead of reducing people to their political affiliations, I want us to think about our core values that navigate how we see the world. I want us to focus on everybody's viewpoints. Some overlap, some are different, but everybody has their own unique constellation of values, and that's what makes us different, and that's what makes us diverse. So here are the core values I present to them. There's a list of a bunch of different values on here, such as freedom, accountability, cooperation, trustworthiness, religion, spirituality. And I leave a blank card on there, just in case there's one that a person hasn't identified that's up there. So each year, empathy and compassion come up as common values among my psychology students. Good, right? I think that's who you want when you're sitting on the opposite side of the couch. So I think we're doing a good job in selecting our students. Again, empathy and compassion are also talked in our training program a lot. We work with a lot of tough clients and populations, and we often talk about compassion fatigue. That's the stress that people might endure in helping professions. So hospice nurses, teachers, activists, and psychologists. This compassion fatigue has a lot of negative effects on people and how they function. So we sometimes take on our clients' depression, anxiety, hyperarousal, and then we also battle some of the physical complaints that come with that compassion fatigue as well. So eventually, this compassion fatigue can lead to burnout and attrition in our field. So compassion is the pity or concern of the suffering of others. Some definitions might include that compassion drives you to want to help change things that are enduring the suffering. We also talk about kind of being in one's shoes and stepping into another person's shoes in our definition of compassion. Empathy, on the other hand, kind of expands from compassion and looks at understanding and feeling the feelings of someone else. So I haven't personally battled substance abuse, but I could connect with somebody by having invisible medical conditions or having a friend that has been impacted by substance abuse or just having compassion for their situation. So how does compassion and empathy develop? Is it intrinsic? Are we born with it and we just all naturally have it? Or is it socialized? Do we learn it from positive role models in our life how to have this compassion and empathy? So researchers and clinicians have been researching this, and there's no clear answer. So we're thinking about, can we teach compassion and empathy to children through active listening, through building resiliency, engaging in community? In my work in forensic psychology, I work with a lot of people who commit sex offenses. These really dire, heinous crimes where they've caused harm to the public. And in the public's pursuit of justice, they often want accountability. So when we're thinking about having these folks return to our communities, one of the treatment goals that we often have is victim empathy. We want to show that these individuals have some type of empathy or remorse or compassion for not only just the individuals they've affected, but their community at large. So we want to know, are they ready to be reintegrated back into society so they don't cause future harm? So I researched this and I write about it. I write about it in very, very serious context. If a person is psychopathic, which some of our offenders are, should we be teaching them victim empathy? It may not be a good idea because teaching them victim empathy might make them a better con artist. It might make them a better manipulator because they're learning about how to exhibit emotions and how to engage in pro-social behaviors to then coerce others. And we saw that with the Joker, coerced his psychiatrist, Harley Quinn, into a relationship with him. That's the pop culture aspect of this. So more importantly, should we be teaching victim empathy, and can it be taught to begin with? Do all people actually have empathy and compassion? Does our level of empathy and compassion vary by context? So as a clinician, scholar, and human, I've wondered if empathy and compassion actually creates behavior change. I've become a skeptic over the years of my work in this. But I'm not the only one. We've had Yale psychologist, Dr. Paul Bloom, write a book called Against Empathy. Yikes. So good thing he's a researcher and not a clinician, so you won't encounter him in your therapy sessions. So in his book, he states that the problems we face as a society and as individuals is not due to lack of empathy, it's likely too much empathy. That empathy might cloud our judgment. Empathy is so emotionally charged, it might cloud our decision-making and get us away from our larger goals. Empathy focuses on the here and now. So when we're instituting legislation or creating change, we're not thinking about the long-term consequences. So I've been working with people who've been labeled as psychopaths. I've worked with people who've done these really heinous crimes. And when I tell people out in the community and burn bridges, they say, wow, how do you do that work? It must be really hard. What have you done in order to take care of yourself and support yourself? And I say my answer is my clinical training, my colleagues, my crude humor, and then just developing coping skills over time in order to work with these populations. So what is the one behavior that gets to me? That's what everybody wants to know. Yeah, you've worked with murderers. What's the one thing that makes you tick? What's the one thing that keeps you up at night and makes you question humanity? The internet. Reading the comments section of news articles is what keeps me up at night. Yes, some of those are bots and fake people, but the rest of them are people in our community making these comments and remarks. So last year, with the help of the Public Impact Fellowship, I wrote an op-ed in the Denver Post regarding the case of Jeannie Bunsen. I was reading the news, and okay, I was scrolling through Twitter, as many of my Twitter followers know. And I came across this headline of a person who murdered their 7-year-old nephew. The clickbait drew me in, obviously, and I read about how a 16-year-old Jeannie Bunsen strangled her 7-year-old nephew, resulting in his death, while babysitting him. 16-year-old Jeannie Bunsen. That's not the image I had in my head when I read aunt kills her nephew. So so my empathy already kicks into my mind, my compassion kicks in, and I have a lot of questions about kind of her life and her circumstance. But in the following days, the media released her picture. The comments in the comments section from local publications and our local citizens said, she has dead eyes. She looks like a crazy person. Is that a tattoo? She's obviously a thug. So in one of my classes, I teach doing clinical interviews with children and adolescents. In that course, my main message is getting away from the question, what happened to them? That is my question. Why did they do this? And then reframing it to what happened to them. I can't even say it right because that's my framework. What's wrong with them? So what familial or socioeconomic factors led to this young girl babysitting her nephew, a 7-year-old? Was the strangulation a coping response to earlier trauma? And why is it that none of her family members showed up to court during her first court appearance? Further, our social science research is saying things like decision-making, judgment, reasoning, and empathy aren't fully developed until your mid-20s. But Jeannie here is facing getting her case waived into adult court. So my op-ed simply questioned this practice. Given the lack of information that we had on her background at the time, and the fact that she was a 16-year-old and has the potential to be rehabilitated or habilitated, because maybe she didn't have the social skills, the things that she needed in the first place to lead a successful, healthy life. So a few weeks later, I received a postcard in my campus mailbox. My colleagues saw this. And in that postcard, I was called a bleeding heart liberal. And the person said, my 6-year-old knows the difference between right and wrong. Ultimately, I worry about a society that doesn't have compassion or empathy for a child, even when they make a really grieved mistake. Worry about a society that will not open its communities to refugees when they're facing crisis. A society in which a 12-year-old black boy who's playing invokes fear in someone and they don't return home to their families. A society where we take the rights away of certain people based on living their authentic selves. So last week, my first day of class, one of my students did report a value that was not up on the board, community. Quickly felt shamed. I was like, crap. Adding it next year, because that's what I do. Community and relationships are so important in my own personal life and in the work that I do. Community gives us a place where we have safety, support, love, nurturance. From a social justice lens, we need community to thrive. So Black womanist and activist Audre Lorde says, without community, there is no liberation. There is no space in order for us to challenge oppression. A community would view Jeannie Bunsen as a community problem, not an individual or not a family problem. So compassion and empathy are great values to hold, and I do still hold those values, but are they just connecting us on a peripheral level? When does empathy and compassion turn into action or social change? Later this week, I'm meeting with community activists regarding Denver's urban camping ban. For those who are unfamiliar, the ban criminalizes mostly people who are houseless from engaging in activities such as eating, resting, sheltering themselves with tents, blankets on public property. A few weeks ago, a Colorado judge said this ban is unconstitutional. It's violating cruel and unusual punishment. And why? Because we're not offering them alternative resources. If we don't have affordable housing, if we don't have a working living wage, if they can't get mental health care, how are they supposed to live and thrive? So my confusion is, how did we get to this ban? My empathy and my compassion kick in. I'm an empath. So I'm wondering, why can't people live in peace, not entire peace because they are subjected to violence, if we're unwilling to provide them with the things that they need in order to survive and thrive? These conversations with the community are happening around Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday. Many of us idealize and romanticize Dr. King's work today in his I Had a Dream speech. But ultimately, he was assassinated for advocating for equality, equity, and social responsibility. He was an advocate for the Poor People's Campaign. So I question, on his holiday, what would he think of us stripping houseless people of their basic needs? Where is the "give me, you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses yearning to breathe free" from the Statue of Liberty? So, I'm not completely ready to give up on empathy. My colleagues are in the audience and ready to strip my classes away from me. So I can't do that. Both are meaningful values in my life and in my life's work. So if we are to move to this new planet, let's not do any colonialization, because we know that didn't go right the first time. We need to examine how our core values actually transform community. Are our values turning into action? So as we continue having these conversations at our DU community, we need to go beyond empathy and compassion and figure out, how do we create an environment that's supportive of all people? So again, I challenge you to go back to your communities and see how we build the DU community and your departmental communities. Thank you.
Thank you, April. Thought-provoking? Yeah. Stimulating? Perhaps you learned something new? I certainly did. Julio, I think we have to change our challenge. So when you go out and you meet that stranger, do say buenos dias, look them in the eye, but don't give them a creepy eye. Just look them. Seriously, I think the message there is extraordinarily powerful. Our last and final speaker here, if I can get to my notes in time, is one of our own students, which is absolutely fabulous, Hayden Evans. He's a University of Denver undergrad. He's a third-year undergrad at the University of Denver. He's studying biochemistry, French language, and culture. He's currently helping Professor Majestic in the College of Natural Science and Mathematics conduct research in atmospheric chemistry. He serves as a research coordinator for Envision You, a nonprofit focusing on mental and behavioral health equity in the LGBTQ+ community. Let's welcome our own student here. Hayden, come on up to the stage.
Okay, hello. So as mentioned, I am a third-year undergraduate, and I do all of those things that were previously mentioned. But most importantly, I serve on the Queer Student Alliance e-board for the undergraduate students here at the University of Denver as Inter-Alliance Liaison. Big title, basically what it means is that I foster community among the different affinity orgs on campus, whether that be the Black Student Alliance, the Latinx Student Alliance, the Muslim Student Association, and I work to bring these people together and foster community. But I was like, what is more relevant? What is more textual? How do I do this? And this question got me really thinking. Number one, support. It is a buzzword, as was previously mentioned. So let's bring it into a more textual context. At my first community and values meeting, I was handed sticky notes that said, "You add value to DU because," and we were challenged to give these sticky notes to people and simply say why they added value. It got me thinking about a time when I sort of lost community and received notes similar to this. When I was pretty young, around 13 years old, I was an all-state ranked gymnast. My team was my life. I traveled with them ate with them, trained with them. We supported each other, we pushed each other. And eventually what that led to was me being very successful. But at my peak, a mental illness that had been developing for a very long time ramped up. And I found myself in complete physical and mental destruction. I was asked, very kindly, mind you, to leave my team, my gym, and I found myself without community. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I found myself in a new community, in a residential treatment center, where I received notes similar to this. You add value to my life, you add value to my recovery, because. And that mutual support, although it doesn't always look like notes, has become a value that I hold very dear to my heart in community building. 2, resilience. Mentioned a few times already, but to me, resilience looks like having a door slammed in your face when a potential partner doesn't want to invest, potentially, in your organization. It looks to me like collating marketing packets that you really just don't want to do on a day-to-day basis. I mean, who wants to sit in an office for 3 hours and collate hundreds of marketing packets? It looks like talking to administrators and being like, hey, this is my lived experience, and sometimes not having that translate. And as I think to the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis, whether that be legislators or whether that be administrators or whether that be my peers, undergraduate students at the University of Denver, I realize that resilience is key. Maybe you don't make a connection the first time, maybe you don't make a connection the second time, but by asking people to come into your community, and by showing them the human dignity that they deserve, maybe we can get somewhere. And then finally, sustaining connections. I work with a lot of people on a day-to-day basis that I don't agree with, that I don't like, very dislike wholeheartedly. There's a specific example of another trans person of color on campus who on multiple occasions has hurt me, hurt other people around me. And I laugh about it now, but in the moment it felt very real. It felt like part of my support system, part of my community, part of the resources that I had available to me as a student holding a marginalized identity in a predominantly white institution fell away. I was like, but wait, I've been here before. I've been in a place where my community was stripped from underneath me. And here's what I learned. I learned that by showing that same compassion that I was talking about before, that same support, even to someone that you disagree with, bringing them into your community, not kicking them out, you end up developing a connection that may not be the closest connection you will ever develop in your life, but it's there, and it supports the ultimate goal, the ultimate work that you are doing. So, addressing the question, what would I do if I found myself on another planet, no community? Maybe not what I did as a 13-year-old. Maybe I would find ways to give and receive support. Maybe I would turn to my value of resilience and foster connections with people that seem practically impossible. And maybe I would ask people who I disagree with, who I dislike, to come into my community and find value in that connection, rather than exclude them, kick them out, and gatekeep. And that's what I want to see also at DU. Hopefully we'll see that through this initiative and through the work of everybody around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayden. Thank you for sharing your personal story and how it has impacted you and what you would do on that planet. I think that is a fitting way to end today's sessions of talks on a very personal note of how the community impacts one individual in a way. This was a grand experiment, as this C&V is as an initiative is itself, and I hope that you take away, I certainly do, that it was a very successful experiment. I thought we had 4 amazing, wonderful speakers who had the courage to come up in front of you and talk about a topic that is challenging for us to even think about and conceptualize. And yet they did it in such an inspiring and compelling way. So to our speakers, thank you. Let's give them another round, please. I think if there's takeaways, you all are mature and professional enough to figure out what your takeaways are. But for me, I love the message of kindness. I still love empathy as a solution. But I think, April, what I take away is maybe that's not enough, right? And call to action is really what we also need to think about. I think what I learned from Jamie is the orientation that he has and executes that with his team of implementing the values that they know are going to lead to their success. And he has such a deep, deep commitment to that. And Hayden, sharing your resiliency, how important that is, and bringing in those people that you may not agree with into your community is a key to success that I think all of us could take away from time to time. What great messages, what great challenges that we have. I hope this day is uplifting for you as you think about it. Now go forth and go meet those strangers, look them in the eye, and convey that sense of empathy. Thanks so much for joining us on our very first one.